the romanticism which kept us alive. Hey, we are raising money for Swiggy. Swiggy will be a big company someday. So the emotional joy of that kept us alive. Never the financial returns of raising capital.
And that's also a critical trait for founders, that founders who are good at sports become good successful founders.
Founders are probably not devoting enough time to understand consumer psychology, buying patterns, to build fundamentally great products. Good day, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today, we have a very special guest who's also one of my very good and cool friends. Welcome, Zerin.
Hi, thanks, Sandeep.
Zerin has a long career doing a lot of different things, but more importantly, you see the startup ecosystem evolve in India. Zerin, why don't we just start off giving us a little bit of background of who you are and how you've grown in your career?
Great. So I'll just start with what we do today. I'm the co-founder of IndigoEdge, which is a tech investment bank. We help great companies raise capital, primarily institutional capital. So we do Series B and onwards of deals. We invest money from our balance sheet into companies. We are LPs in a few funds, and we have recently launched a fund of our own. I've hardly worked. I worked for 10 months at Mindtree Consulting, IT services firm. I think the only project I worked was they were automating the workflow for Franklin Templeton Mutual Fund, by which any fund manager could create fact sheets to raise capital for their fund. To be honest, I don't think that's been the real influence. I learned to code in 11th and 12th. There was a joy in creating automation. I thought I was a rock star. I went to computer science, NIT Calicut, and all my peers could code equally well. So then I started feeling like I'm a monkey laying bricks, and we all are monkeys. So my desire to become a coder just disappeared. But when I wanted to get into computer science, I wanted to build products, games, and things like that. Got a little disillusioned with the system there, and then I decided I have to get to the business side of things, the entrepreneurship side of things. But throughout, automating things, making things more efficient has always been there in the DNA. So when having stepped out, would people order on Swiggy? Would people book bus tickets on Redbus? Would people book movie tickets on Book My Show? It all seemed very obvious for us. And during that phase from 2006 onwards, it was all the offline to online plays, and they were all no-brainers. But even then, there were people who really didn't believe that would happen. Today, it's a lot tougher to actually spot great companies disrupting status quo, because now the edges are very nuanced. Those days, it was a lot obvious. But the influence comes from the desire for efficiency and disrupting status quo.
Do you think it has become easier to build startup now, or it has become more challenging?
So a lot of the ecosystem is a lot deeper and better. Access to seed capital, access to advice, access to global capital, processes around how to do things. All of that is a lot deeper, which also means competition is a lot more, which also means the obvious opportunities are all taken, and the obvious opportunities see a lot of capital coming in. So I would say overall it's a lot more conducive to be an entrepreneur today. But the edges are tougher.
That so now is it more difficult to disrupt existing businesses as compared to what it was in 2005, 6, or 10?
A lot of disruption will require large amounts of capital, and they are available. So I think with the deeper ecosystem, it's disruption is a lot more conducive or easier. I think it's easier. But I think the capital needed is a lot larger.
But then why did you guys start to build an, you didn't know what an IB was, boutique IB was, but you never thought we'll build a tech company at that time? Or maybe like do a tech startup rather than building an investment bank?
Yeah, I mean, it was very tough during the early days. Okay, we had a 2-story house in Kumaraswamy layout. We used to sleep in the first floor. Office was in the ground floor. It was all fancy when we jumped out. We were covered on CNBC. Everyone's like, these guys must be up to something. But then reality hit hard. You got to pay rent. You got to eat food. So there were times when batchmates would call for a lunch or dinner, didn't want to turn up because you didn't want to not share the bill. So the easy thing was not be at the table.
Of course.
So during those days, to make cash flows happen, we did odd things, odd jobs, freelance interviews for people, thought about building a bus ticket booking application. I actually had a domain called bookmybusticket.com. So we thought about various other things we could start up. The startup ecosystem was very barren then. Flipkart was a company raising angel capital. It was like the desert before Vegas was created. So you had to start thinking, how do you keep yourself alive? Are there cash flows, or do you build a scalable startup? And those days, $1 million, $2 million check is the equivalent of a 50 million round today. And the early funds, they used to write the angel checks too, because there was nobody writing angel checks those days. So we did think about a lot of tech startups, but then this thing started rolling, and we were always often helping a lot of people create value. And we would always ask ourselves, should we just step out and do something of our own? But then this kept rolling and growing. And then at some stage from 2015, it became clear probably this really is our life's, mission and destiny.
How many Contrarian entrepreneurs have you met in the last 10, 15 years? So there's obviously this notion that India does well looking at markets outside and then picking up models that have worked and then customize it.
Right.
Either copy it for the rest of the world or customize it for India. So in this journey of yours, you probably would have had some of those guys who are very contrarian thinkers, right? Who like wanted to stand outside of the box or create a blue ocean. So any of those stories that come to mind top of your head, and I think that's kind of relevant because I think the next 5-10 years, I think you might have purview to a lot more of those stories.
So I think there are two kinds of founders. People who typically come from McKinsey who look at markets top down. They're very smart in the sense they decide to start up often for financial value creation. They marry top down markets, TAM, their strengths, and what can be built. And often over there, the global model exists and they're very quick to execute on it. Then there is the mission-driven, passionate founder who stumbled upon it, bottom up, tactical, and then they go on to build big business. And there are people who are take global models and customize it for India. I think you and me know Deepak of Ace23.
Yeah.
So he built a large real money gaming platform for Rummy. Now, was there Rummy popular globally? No. But was PokerStars or Party Poker there globally?
Yeah.
But then this whole industry started with him wanting to play Rummy with his mother digitally. And now it's such a large industry.
Yeah. So do you think that GTM is going to become a lot easier? Now, I know I've been talking to a lot of people in the last year and a half, and since there are a lot more companies in different areas, everybody is just saying GTM has become extremely hard.
What is GTM?
Go to market.
For whom?
Mostly for SaaS companies or tech companies that are looking to sell outside of India, with the US being the primary market. It's being extremely difficult with the funding winter and a lot more companies in the same space attacking the same $5. Uh, so, and that's across enterprise or mid market. But don't you see the strength that Indian companies will not exactly from day zero, but they build a product, they get a certain amount of traction, will look at selling globally straight away. And that's going to happen a lot faster.
So I think enterprise tech and SaaS is directionally going to compound for India. Like we were good at writing code, so we built Infosys.
Yeah.
Now, how do you sell that code digitally or physically? That would be enterprise tech. I think we're still not cracked building world-class enterprise tech, selling to enterprises globally. Not many, not enough companies, probably on two hands. But as they come, we're going to compound the talent pool, the knowledge, the learning from all of that is going to happen. So it's a matter of when rather than if. And that will happen.
And don't you think the same?
Because now I'm seeing so many companies scale to 5 million, 10 million ARR
Sure.
a lot faster
Yeah.
than what I was seeing
6 years back.
Yeah.
5 years back. And do you think the same thing will probably happen with D2C as well? Once companies figure out cross-border for D2C, especially with Amazon and other platforms out there?
I'm not I'm not too bullish about D2C companies. I think there's a lot of euphoria currently.
Yeah.
How do you scale beyond a point? Especially if I'm in India.
Yeah.
If you manage to build a global D2C play, that's a different story. I'm just talking about India D2C companies. Finally, how do you crack your omni-channel physical
Modern channel.
Yeah, that remains to be seen and proven out. Does it get pulled or is it a push product where the influencer, the last mile has to push you out? And how dependent are you on Amazon and all those channels? So I'm waiting and watching with respect to D2C outcomes. There's a lot of capital going in there. My view is these companies are going to become nice strategic tuck-ins for existing large omni-channel brands where they didn't build something out because 500 crore brand was not large enough for them to build.
Right.
That's my personal view around D2C, but I'm waiting and watching.
So is it also, I think we had this conversation earlier as well, Krishnu and music, that is it also because founders are probably not devoting enough time to understand consumer psychology, buying patterns, to build, fundamentally create products and brand, which takes a certain amount of time, right? Like that's still has gestation period, right? You have R&D, you have brand, you do content. It's not a flywheel where you switch on advertising and suddenly you start to your money, right?
I mean, I think founders know what they work hard to understand the consumer. I mean, I would be naive on my part to believe a consumer founder is not understanding. I think the challenge is distribution is expensive. So if you build single SKU or single product and you have to build distribution and build a large enough outcome, it is tricky. I think and that's the challenge. A lot of investors see a company and look at the TAM and say, how big can this be? This is going to be a 500 crore company or a 1,000 crore company. Like if you look at the sneaker brands, are they going to be 200 crores, 1,000 crores, 2,000 crores? Somewhere along, my belief is smart founders will expand TAM.
Sure.
Yeah. Like I think if you look at the Attenberg founder, like I think a lot of people had issues around TAM during the early days. But then you have succeeded somewhere with building something, you have capabilities, then you still have a lot of hunger, you translate it into adjacencies. But the mortality of, succeeding in one place and then doing it in another place and building large outcomes is challenging in D2C. But I think there's going to be a lot of acquisitions of good enough brands. So are all companies going to go very large and list and be standalone success stories? Maybe not.
Brilliant. But that was great. I mean, much appreciated you spending your time and thoughts with us. And I think there's a lot of value that founders and other startup ecosystem enthusiasts we get out of this session. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate if you can like and share the same. And to our wonderful location and space guests, BHIVE has been so gracious in terms of giving us this location.
Awesome. Thank you. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for taking your time to.